Welcome to the Predictive Playbook, the second live show today with myself, your host, John Ryan, and I have Tony Finn and Rob Veno from Wager Talk joining me yet again to have some fun discussion, educational material, live betting strategies, and a whole lot more. Tony said we might even talk about Alice in Wonderland and how that ties into Major League Baseball, but maybe we should hold off on that till next week. But in this game that's going on now, we're about ready to, I think, break from the halftime. Michigan has been the better team. And I've always preached on this show that in the NBA and college hoops, doesn't happen as much in college hoops, that when the team has 10-point run against the team that you kind of like, you take your team again. So I did the infamous 50% pre-flop on Florida State. And then I was fortunate enough to get plus 7.5. At least I thought the price at the time was fortunate. And only paying minus 105. And usually after a run, I'm used to seeing minus 120. And then I have to be really quick with that, the submit button whenever that price changes to the VIG that I want, because I refuse to pay minus 120. Even if somebody told me I could make money taking the minus 120, I don't think I would believe them because I know that you won't. But we're 32-21 right now at the half. And there was a run in basically Florida State went scoreless. And that's what I wanted to point out here for you guys. At the 12:57 mark, it was 11-8 Michigan. Michigan ran off 8 in a row as part of their 10-point run because it was 8-9 prior to that. And then the score was 19-8 at the time that I was getting the plus 7.5. Then, kind of chopped around. Michigan had a very brief period where they didn't score. Florida State then at the 8:01 mark with a football score of 21-14. Michigan goes on another run. That one was, I think that was actually another 8-0 run. And then they kind of back and filled the rest of the half. So, I'm not pleased being on the Florida State side. I'm sure Rob isn't either right now, but this is a gut feel. This has nothing to do with anything but a gut feel. Like I'm a trader looking at the market. I do think Florida State will make a run here, and maybe that'll give me a chance to buy back and try to play a middle. How are you guys seeing this game and the flows? Do you make anything of the scoreless stretches being Michigan's defense, or was it just Florida State not being able to score?
Robbie?
Well, for me, because I'm on under, I'm not looking to go anywhere else here. I think at halftime you could have gotten Florida State -2. I think I saw -11, so you're laying 1 penny more. When it first came out, it subsequently went up from there. 2 -11 would have made the adjusted price Michigan -9. Push on a 9, win on an 8-point loss. But, guys, sometimes they play out the way you think they're supposed to play out. And in my mind in this game, when we talked about it the other day, I just felt like Juwan Howard was going to try and make this a scrum because without Isaiah Livers, he had to win something in the low, or at least I perceived his coaching philosophy here would be to try and keep this game in the low 60s. And Florida State will go to any tempo. Florida State, for the most part, it's nice that they're diverse in the fact that they can go quick or they can go slow. But the one thing you notice about them is they'll let the other team dictate it to them. Whether or not they come out of this, Leonard Hamilton maybe goes into the locker room and says, we want to pick up the pace a little bit more here. Remains to be seen, but generally it's not the way with this team. So for me, I'm hopeful that it remains the way it is. I do think Florida State has the capability, certainly, and Michigan as well in a negative fashion. In other words, they could go into a 3-minute scoring drought with their lineup. So I think Florida State does have the capability to make a run in this game. I would be surprised if they didn't, John. I really would. If this margin just extends from the start of the second half on, that would surprise me a little bit because Florida State's usually tougher and has a more heart than that. But for me, I have the under 144. I'm going to hang right with that because there's no need for me to go any other direction right now. I'm in a fairly good spot at this point.
Yeah, the live line for the total right now is 128.5.
Yeah.
So you're in an awesome position right now.
when I did my write-up, and I like Michigan, one of the key matchups, there was two key matchups that I considered in this game. And there would be some who argue, maybe even you two might argue with me. The first matchup was the fact that I thought the Michigan front court, their bigs, could hold their own against a pretty big line, a pretty tall, lengthy, athletic front court for Florida State, 7-1, the reserve 7-2, that kind of length. Mm-hmm. It was the backcourt where Evans is the smallest of Florida State's. He's 6'4", about 220. That's a linebacker playing against a a Michigan team who can play physical. But I thought the big matchup was what was Michigan going to do with Barnes, who at 6'9" is a difficult matchup. Not that he's any terrific shooter, but he's capable of stroking it. But what it does is it would bring out the bigs out of the paint for Michigan, yada, 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 that kind of thing. So right now, Michigan or Florida State is 0 for 7 from three-point line. I don't anticipate them remaining, 0 for 7 this half. So in that sense too, I expect Barnes to be a little better. 6 points. He shot 50%, but he's now at 3 for 7, but he had 3 turnovers too. So let's give we must give Wagner some credit. A pretty good defender, actually an elite defender, and that was a good choice, I think, to put him on Barnes. So what kind of a reaction, like you guys just mentioned, does Hamilton have to what to what Michigan staff, their coaching staff, and Howard has done? That was really one of the keys, was how Hamilton and Howard played chess. Who was going to win this chess, or who was at the game's end, who was going to be the one threatening the other. And I, as much as I like Hamilton, his success in this tournament has been pedestrian. Howard, it's mostly a guess. He's actually played in this tournament and done pretty well in this tournament.
Yep.
He didn't coach in this tournament necessarily, at least not a head coach. Fun to watch though right now, and here we go. We're underway.
Well, I was noticing too, obviously the turnover battle was heavily in favor of Michigan, and it looked like 11 for Florida State, which is way too many for a first half in a low scoring game.
Yeah.
If you're playing Gonzaga and it's 50-48 at the half, you could almost live with that. But I also thought the second half would be very important for Michigan to get those defensive rebounds and minimize second chance scoring opportunities by Florida State, who's pretty darn good on the offensive boards. But against a Michigan team that, doesn't get out of position, knows how to block out, Florida State's going to have to put the ball in the bucket on the first attempt. If they don't, then Michigan could easily run away with it. But the shooting percentages have been, bad. And watching the game, I couldn't get a feel whether it was just bad shooting or whether it was just incredible defense. But field goal percentage for Florida State, 35, Michigan 39. That's live right now. Florida State hasn't made a three-point shot, 0 for 7. But here's the interesting twist is Florida State is beating Michigan in the free throw percentage, 75% to 61. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but it's either very, very good defense or it's, maybe it's a combination of both bad shooting and great defense. And the two of them combined are putting up these kind of results. But I think the more that Michigan shoots badly, that keeps Florida State in it.
Yeah, I would be, if I'm Michigan, is even as big as Florida State is in the paint, or can be, depending on, they can have 2 7-footers on the floor at the same time if they wanted to. I would be attacking the rim. At this point, I would not be settling for jump shots. I would be attacking them and at least attempting to put Florida State on their heels to some degree, especially the backcourt. But I wouldn't be crashing the boards. I wouldn't be leaking. I'd be protecting the defensive and doing the best I could to refrain from attacking the offensive glass, because that's when you're going to get yourself in trouble. Florida State can be creative in transition, and all of a sudden they've got 6 quick points in the game. It's a game again. So
yeah,
that would be my concern.
Well, we'll keep this. I'm going to keep this on in the background here. Let's move on to if you want to talk about the games tonight, feel free. But I thought we did pretty good with them on the first show today, and we can always come back to them. So why don't we go down to the games tomorrow, which is Oregon State against Houston. And I had mentioned that teams that are in Oregon State's position right now, where they've covered the spread in 8 of their last 10, and that's 8 or more of their last 10, and are a dog, are 7-1, even without being a dog or a favorite. They're 13-4 at this level of the NCAA tournament and beyond. So Elite Eight, Final Four, semifinals, final, and that's pretty hard to ignore right now, given how Oregon State's season. If they don't win the Pac-12, they're not in this thing. And it truly is amazing that they have been able to put this together and advance this far. So I have Houston right now at 7.5 with a total of 130. So that basically implies like a 68, 69, 69, 61 type of game. So again, another game where nobody exceeds 70 points. And the way the under is going, I mean, how can you even bet the over on these games? It's under first, and then or nothing. But Rob, why don't you start us off with your breakdown of this matchup? And it's okay if you don't have a feel for one way or the other. Of course, we're leans aren't required. We're down to 2 games now, and it gets harder and harder to make a pick, especially with more than 24 hours till game time.
Yeah, well, I would say real quick here, John, if we talk about coaching first, which when we were on earlier this afternoon, we had alluded to the point that you have one-day turnarounds now, and you need a coach that can throw a game plan together quickly with these one-day turnarounds. And I think both of these guys are real good at it. I mean, Wayne Tinkle goes unheralded simply because he came from the Big Sky to Oregon State, and since he's been at Oregon State, they haven't done anything for the nation to notice him. But if you go back and check his career in the Big Sky Conference, his Montana team was on top year after year after year. So you got 2 really good head coaches here. And by now, you've got, with these 2, you've got fixed styles where, as we talked earlier about teams that can either go quick or go slower, these 2 teams are going to do what they do, grind. And who's going to be better at the grind? Now, in the 6 games combined between these 2 in the tournament so far, 2 of those, one for Oregon State, I think it was the Oklahoma State, one for Houston, I think it was the Cleveland State game, went over this total of 130. The rest all under 130 here. Houston just faced up with a team totally dependent upon the 3-point shot. For the most part, Oregon State is dependent upon the 3. But last game against Loyola, guys, Loyola really took the 3 away from them. And you get Ethan Thompson, who's an elite athlete, and you get some of Oregon State's bigs. So they have a couple extra ways to score that I don't think Syracuse did. One other thing real quick, they've shot 55 free throws in their last 2 tournament games, Oregon State has, and they've made 50 of them, 50 of 55 from the free throw line. Houston fouls a ton. And I wonder how Houston, because the numbers don't correlate. Like you look at Houston's defensive free throw rate allowed, and it was dead last in the AAC. But yet they don't give up a lot of free throw points. It's almost as if they foul the heck out of you till they get to the bonus, and then at the bonus, and while they're fouling the heck out of you, they're not fouling you. They're not committing shooting fouls. They're just committing take the ball out fouls. I don't know how that works, but the numbers don't correlate. I think if Oregon State gets to the free throw line here, that could be advantageous for them. Houston certainly can find their way to the free throw line. They've got good free throw shooters, but all in all, it really comes down to who's going to make shots. I don't know that Houston, once again, they didn't show that they're a great shooting team, even in victory against Syracuse. Tinkle's team will go at it a little bit different defensively than Boeheim with the 2-3 zone. But give him credit over there because he'll mix defenses. He did it to Loyola on Saturday. Man up, now we're in zone. What's working now? Back to man, back to zone. So we'll see switching defenses out of them. I tend to like Oregon State plus the points in this game. I just don't think that this is a team where Cinderella slipper is going to just easily fall off and there's a blowout. But I would worry somewhat about Houston's explosiveness. Not enough to scare me off. And I think there's ball handling enough on this team, as we've seen from the backcourt of Oregon State, to withstand what Houston's going to throw at them. So, again, it's a disciplined club. They showed that discipline against Loyola. I don't think they'll get too erratic, and I don't necessarily think that they have to shoot threes the way Syracuse had to in order to win. I don't think that's the same case for Oregon State. So put this in the category, guys. I think if you take Oregon State, I'll make this real simple. If you take Oregon State and match them up against Rutgers and the two styles and who they both are, and I think in the Rutgers game, you were getting 7.5 or 8 points, almost the same exact number here. And Rutgers almost won that game, only lost by 3. Really, a 14-2 run at the end of the game won it for Houston. They were dead to rights. And as Tony mentioned a couple of days ago, a collapse by Rutgers. I don't think Oregon State does that. So if you just look at it that way, there's a lot of similarities. I think the points are worth taking.
That's a great point, Rob, with the comparison to Rutgers. I agree 100%. I didn't even think of that comparison, to tell you the truth, but that's exactly right. Houston shoots a ton of threes. They rank 42nd in the nation at 25.6. And they make quite a few, too. They rank 38th, making an average of 9. Free throws made, they rank 108th. Free throws attempted, 138. So Houston gets to the line. But Oregon State gets to the line just a little bit more. It's basically like 1.5 more attempts, 1.5 more makes from the line. And Houston's opponent effective field goal percentage of 43% ranks first in the nation, but it's not adjusted for opponents. So when you adjust it for opponent, it's still pretty darn good at 33rd on my stuff. But I agree 100% with what you just said. And, there's one thing, like, when you're talking about 18 to 22-year-olds, and you hear this in baseball, and I don't want to get us off the track here, but when a recruit, a rookie, or a promotion from single A to double A all of a sudden gets confidence, you start really seeing the results. And I don't think there's a more confident team in this tournament right now than Oregon State. The story is incredible. They probably will make a movie about this if they go any further. They were picked to come in dead last in the preseason, the Pac-12. I guess they were seeded pretty poorly in the Pac-12 tournament as well, but they won it. And then they just waltz into Indianapolis and put on this show. So I think, when you're that young and you're playing like this, you can beat anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. We'll go up against the Philadelphia 76ers if we have to, or we think we can beat them. And that's the X factor, I think.
I'm going to throw a quick number, and then I'm going to let Tony go here. But I just had to dig through my garbage can for notes from the Wager Talk Today show that I did with Teddy and Prez on Friday. Because, John, when you said Houston shoots a ton of threes, I had a number for that Friday when I analyzed this game for them. Do you know that their top 2 scorers on Houston, Quentin Grimes and Marcus Sasser, going into the Syracuse game? Now, I don't have those numbers added in, but those 2 guys alone had 629 field goal attempts on the season. 629, top 2 scorers on the team. But the thing is, of those 629 shots they put up, 420 were threes. 67% of the time they shot the ball, it was a 3. And Houston is not Baylor, where you lead the nation in three-point shooting with all your guards. Houston is, some nights we're here, some nights we're not, and the defense wins it for us. And when you have inconsistency like that, you could see where a defense like Oregon State might be able to give them some fits here. So just the number I want to throw out there, just to prove how reliant the Houston Cougars offensively have been on the three-point shot.
Tony, I'll say something real quick, and then I'll give you the floor here. In terms of consistency, to his point, Houston ranks 289th in consistency versus Oregon State, run middle of the road, average Division I team. But that's a big difference. And then Houston has played their worst games away from home by far. They rank 282nd in away from home situations, whereas Oregon State is 7th. I'll say that again. They're 7th, not 70th, 7th. So you have two ships literally heading in opposite directions right now, and the more we're talking about this, it's a team like how can you bet against Oregon State getting this many points? But we need to hear what Tony Finn has to say about this game.
Well, my love, my love for the Oregon State team and the Pac-12. So here,
I know your love for Beavers.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's another show too.
I was going to say.
Here's what we're going to do here. Here's what I haven't seen, guys. If you look back, and I know these are numbers, and it's easy to find something. It's easy to find a stat, twist it. You can do that almost with any stat. People do it all the time. But there's one thing, the common denominator here for this Ducks team, for this Beavers team, is as Ethan Thompson goes, so go the Beavers. I mean, look at his numbers in these first. Basically, he put up a 13-10-6, then 26 points. And Houston is the team that, as you guys just described, they are the team that can cheat a little bit on Thompson. Listen, he's not the smoothest point guard. If you watch him play, you think, how is this? Because he's a fairly big guy. He's long, and he can find, he's got a reach that enables him to do some things that some point guards can't do. However, he's not the quickest, not the most graceful guy you'll ever watch play. And I believe that if I'm Calvin Sampson, and what I know from Calvin Sampson, I've been watching Calvin Sampson for a long time. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, and when he was the OU coach, and then the debacle that happened in Indiana, and then here we are again right now in Houston. He's a good coach, recruits well, coaches well, brings on very experienced staff, and these guys are going to do something to at least attempt to confuse, fluster, and contain Ethan Thompson. And if you do that, you're going to beat this. You're going to beat this Beavers team, and it's possible you're going to beat them by the number that you're going to have to lay with Houston. I'm saying that's what I want to see. That's what I would do. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed or on the court. So, but it's the only thing. What this team has done so far, as you described, is it's not just a surprise to me. It's such a surprise. I find it amazing. Not just another basketball game, not just another tournament with surprise. I mean, look at what they did this season, where they're picked to finish. Look at their peripherals, underlying surface. It's amazing where they're at. And I think it all starts with senior guard Ethan Thompson.
It's great stuff. Period. Great stuff. Let's move on to the second game tomorrow, where we have Arkansas and Baylor. And no offense to the previous participants in the matchup we just broke down, but this is the game that I definitely want to see. Starts at 10 o'clock here on the East Coast. So for Rob and I, it might get a little more difficult to stay up instead of living in Las Vegas, but we'll do our best. But this seems like the initial take on this one is, you have two teams that are somewhat the same, and it kind of surprised me. Arkansas averaging 80, I'll round these off, 82 points a game, Baylor 83. Points against per game, 68 Arkansas, 56 for Baylor. Field goal percentage, 45% Arkansas, 48% Baylor. Rebounding, edge goes to Arkansas, which offsets the shooting, 40-36. Assists, 15-16. And on we go. Both are on a 3-game win streak coming into this thing. Baylor, is favored by 7.5, depending on where we're looking here. Bring it up right now, just make sure.
7.
Pretty
much. I mean, at least that's what it was just a few minutes ago before we started the program. So,
and the total you have at?
Let me pull it up again here. It's what I have for this game is what we have almost across the board, at least on my odds, is 7. and the total is I'm gonna refresh this to make sure I'm not gonna.
Okay.
I want to make it look make myself look sillier than I already am. What do you have,
Didn't mean to
Robbie?
be on the spot.
No. What do you have, Rob?
I thought
I have
when I looked, and I'm
149.
looking now too on my Wager Talk odd screen, but I thought I saw 148 is the total earlier.
No.
But let's look.
Yeah, I'm having 148.5 to 150. That's that margin. I've got some 148.5, the lowest. It opened at 150, but there's still a 150 out there on the strip. So that could be a late. Listen, Circa just flashed to 149.5. So a lot of times they're late to report the Vegas into our live odds boards.
So a slight push downward.
Yeah, there's 7.5. There's 7.5. There's some now. I've just seen a couple flash to 7.5 too. So the line keeps to grow, and it's funny you mentioned that because there was a couple people who messaged me as soon as this line came out, and they said they were surprised of this number. They were surprised that Arkansas was getting any points, and part of it's a knee-jerk reaction to how Arkansas played yesterday. Let's be honest, and they'll do that in this kind of a tournament because you don't have a lot of time. You got a reaction. You got one day between games. They're going to put the number out there, and people are going to start firing away. You agree?
Oh, I agree 100%. I think that actually favors the over too, if I can even say that word anymore in this tournament. But seriously, I mean, like when you say over, people look at you like something wrong with you, and there might be. But at 149, that implies basically a 75 point for both teams, and then with the line, you're looking at roughly, what is it, 78, 71.
Yeah.
So now we have a game with both teams over 70, but both teams are actually projected to get less than their team average for the season. Mm-hmm. And that's clearly a reflection of both their defensive presence. I don't think that's a sign to take the under at all. But again, like we talked earlier, and I'm not bold enough to step in front of the freight train, but the under, if Michigan goes under, that would be 6 in a row here in the Sweet 16 with 2 to go. And the first 4 games went under by a total of 78 points. The highest margin in this round is 38 points, and that's for all 8 games. So we're already way ahead, and I just keep banging myself in the head. Is the market this off that we had another under 78 points? This game looks like it's trying to go under. That's going to make that number even higher. At some point, the market kind of the rubber band stretches and then it breaks and it snaps back. But like I said, I'm not bold enough to say it's going to be this game, where we have 170 points scored. But if there was a matchup that it would be a high scoring game, I think this one is. So I lean to the over.
It's going to play. These two teams will play. They both will take every transition opportunity they can get. Absolutely, especially Baylor. The way they were able to attack that rim in the second half against Nova was absolutely. It just looked too easy, and they have such good athletes. They're able to not only when they get to the rim, they're able to stay airborne long enough to make the adjustments against the big teams. And this is it's an interesting. And I wish, like I said yesterday, I wish the Arkansas would have played a little more to their season average, because I think this number would have been a little bit lower for a guy like me who likes Baylor in this matchup. But Baylor did some things that, and Baylor showed their versatility yesterday, guys. That a guy that led the team in scoring, he doesn't typically lead the team in scoring. Good shooter, but he just doesn't. So, in fact, their best player, at least their best backcourt player, Mitzvah had a poor game, and they still win, and still play terrific defense, and they still cover for their backers. So, in my opinion, guys, and I'm not. It's not a revelation. I'm not saying something that hadn't already been said, but this thing's a Gonzaga Baylor. It just looks so much as I like Michigan and what they're doing right now. Let's be honest. This is a decent Florida State team, a good Florida State team, a long, lean, mean, athletic team. They're up by 15 points. It still looks like to me that it's Gonzaga and Baylor. At least, I just that maybe I'm hoping that, because I think that's probably worth a. It depends on what you like, what your beverage choice is, but it sounds like a really good bottle of wine, and turn your computer off and don't even go look at it for a couple. That kind. And I don't get to do that very often. How about you guys? Don't get to do that very often. Just watch a game without doing some work. And I think I might take the time on Monday night to do that. Yeah. I'm assuming with these guys, they've screwed us up on the schedule so bad. All my articles, the first Monday in April is reserved for this game. The first Monday, at least the night. So, and I can't tell you last time I did that. Went to my favorite watering hole or a nice restaurant that nice restaurants have. And by the way, nice restaurants have TVs. Do not let your wife tell you any different. They have TVs and they're showing sports. That's
the ones I go to are pretty small, though. They're kind of tiny, and you have to squint to see it. And
those are called tablets, and I'll bring one just in case there's no TV.
That's beautiful.
That's what I'm seeing, and maybe I'm hoping. It really doesn't matter. We can always make that night in that game. We can talk ourselves into being exciting, at least us expecting it to be exciting, entertaining, and historic, even maybe. So
there is a pretty strong betting system I'll share with you guys, since you like them so much on the NBA show and Wager Talk.
Yeah.
So this is you're playing on favorites of 3.5 to 9.5 points. After 3 straight wins of double digits or more, and Loyola actually was on this system. And obviously lost. So this one is on Arkansas, and they're playing against an opponent after 2 straight wins of 3 points or less. Mm-hmm. And with Baylor coming off the 3 straight wins of double digits or more. 25-year record is 80% against the spread, 28-6-1.
Yeah.
And that has to
play the dog, essentially.
You're going to play on Baylor.
Oh, I'm playing by okay. I misheard you then.
I'm glad you brought that up, because maybe I said it wrong. You're playing on favorites of 3.5 to 9.5 points.
Okay, all right.
Which is Baylor, and they've come off 3 straight wins of 10 points or more, double digits, playing an opponent in Arkansas that's had 2 straight close wins of 3 or fewer points.
Yeah, that's pretty. Over 25 years. That's while I don't like to go use trends going back more than the players that are on the team in the most cases. This particular trend, I find, if it's an odds maker based trend, I'll buy into it almost always, especially 25-year one. I really will, because it's setting the scenario up, telling you this is how the odds makers are going to position these teams. But this is how it typically plays out.
And I can take just favorites and you get a lot more games involved with it. And then the record does drop down to the low 70s over the last 5 seasons.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty strong. And the P value is quite strong on this too. It's not among the best, but it's in that I would give this system a B-. So it's valid. But it gets that type of grade, grade enough to pay attention to it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And there's not enough sample size in the NCAA tournament for this one. But it basically, if you think about it, it's a team that is barely won 2 games in a row, maybe should have lost both of them, and a team that's just rolling. They're steamrolling their last 3 opponents. And I think in this situation, if this is a tournament betting system, then this pretty much sums up Baylor and it sums up Arkansas.
Yeah.
So for what it's worth, and don't ever, for those out there, don't ever bet a game just based on a system. That I only provided that as support for people who might like Baylor, and I never ever make a bet just because I see something hitting 85% against the spread for any time period. And when they get this high, I really take a look at them, because a lot of times you'll hear trends. This coach is 15-1 on Saturdays, and that's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless.
Yeah. Don't forget he had lunch at McDonald's. When he had lunch at McDonald's, he was
That's right.
20-1.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, I agree. But those odds maker based trends, I respect those. And if they're, especially if they have, they have some weight. They have a little bit of, they have some numbers, and they have some examples, and the test sample is a little larger than, than 2-3 games. That the Atlanta Braves have, they're 1-20 in the postseason openers in the history. Well, yeah, that was they haven't been in the postseason in 15 years, and not one of the players that was on those postseasons is on this team. Those are the ones that I really tell people, be careful, because it has nothing to do with the odds makers. It has nothing to do with the players that are on the team, or the coaches, or anything, or the lunar. We're probably not even on the same lunar phase, So if it's not on the lunar phase, I don't want anything to do that. I want Rob's lunar phase.
Believe it or not, not to get off track here, but when I was on Wall Street, there actually were guys that traded wheat and soybeans based on new moons and full moons, and rather successfully, I might add. And it was simply buy and sell on that date. It was unbelievable. Right. But I never thought to do it, because I thought, well, how'd you make all your money? Well, on the full moon.
I'm a pretty good salesman when I'm extra hairy and they call me a werewolf or something. I don't know. I seem to sell more on that day. But yeah, I made a lot of money. My wife and I had a business for a few years before this became, it was 25, 30 years ago. But I based some of the insurance that I gave out to a big, it's basically a big chain of restaurants owned by a huge company, and based it on Farmer's Almanac. I just decided, instead of pushing snow at that time, we don't have any snows. I'm not going to charge by the snow. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll sell you insurance for this. And I based it on the Farmer's Almanac because I had nothing else to base it on. What else am I going to? Basically, all they're using, right, is history, I'm assuming. So somebody suggested it. I did it, and it worked out. I didn't lose my butt. So
that's important. You never want to do that. That's for sure.
No. I could lose a little bit of mine. Probably wouldn't hurt. But
we don't really have that much excitement here on the East Coast, do we, Rob? I mean, it just seems like Tony's having such the good time out there in Vegas and Los Angeles, probably. And
why get up? Snow. Why get up if we're not going to have a good time?
No, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, Rob knows my mantra. I've had it for a long time. I get up in the morning, and it's a good day when I wake up. I got another chance to piss off my wife and F something up and ask her. I do both better than I pick games, certainly.
Well, that I would find hard to believe, actually, but we can stick it in the database and run some tests on it.
Yeah. Her words kind of.
I have one last question for the show here. I know Rob and you both said that Lucas Oil Stadium was going to be probably the hardest venue to shoot in because it's a football arena. And both these games now, and I think the rest of the way, are all at this stadium. Do you think, I guess this is my question because I really don't know the answer yet. Do you think the market has adjusted enough to reflect the pathetic shooting percentages that have been going on in Lucas Oil? And, if so, maybe has it overshot? And is the over going to ended up being the play the way this tournament ends, just because the market had to move so quickly and swiftly in so few rounds that it'll give us a chance for an over bet maybe. So I'm interested to know what you guys think just about Lucas Oil.
Well, these games, yesterday, today, nothing was played at Lucas Oil. If you go back through these numbers that have been played in the tournament, I think it's Hinkle Fieldhouse that's been the under king. It was 1-8 to the under going into yesterday and into today. So I don't have those calculated with me, but Hinkle's been really an under haven for whatever reason. It's a basketball arena. Could be the matchups, could be a lot of things, but they've used basically Banker's Life and Hinkle Fieldhouse for these last couple of days. So when we get back to Lucas Oil Stadium, we'll see. Guys, real quick, where Baylor and Arkansas are concerned tomorrow, John, if you're looking at total, a reason maybe to play over here is the fact that Arkansas goes 1 of 9 from 3. I mean, Arkansas did so many things wrong yesterday that, that's why the game came up the way it did. But they shot 1 for 9 from the 3-point arc, and it's not really something new in this tournament. I think they're now 11 for 42, just a shade over 25%, and they're not going to win a lot of games that way. They were able to, get past Colgate, and then they were able to win their second game. Yesterday, they come close to being out of this tournament, but they better step it up. But not only did they shoot 1 of 9, but Baylor won a game shooting 3 of 19, and it's your number 1 3-point shooting team in the nation. So if you're looking for bounce back or rubber band or zigzag or whatever, you'd expect that 3-point shooting to go up tomorrow and potentially more points. Both of those games yesterday were very, very low scoring. If you put any credence whatsoever into upper class leadership at this point, the Elite Eight, Arkansas starts 3 freshmen. The kid who won the game yesterday, Devontae Davis, is a freshman. Their best player, Marcus Moody, is a freshman. Jalen Smith is a freshman. The top 7 in Baylor's rotation, all juniors and seniors. If you want to know where I'd rather be with my money, I'd rather be on those Baylor 4 guards and their senior leadership. And that doesn't include, like I say, it's a top 7. So Mark Vital's in there, Flo Thamba's in there. Everybody's in there. Maceo Teague, Adam Flagler, who's probably one of the most underrated reserves in the country. So Baylor deserves to be favorite here. Arkansas, Eric Musselman's got his work cut out, guys. And I know, Tone, you'll give us reasons why Scott Drew should be a fade.
I will.
But
I will.
Like we talked about Dave Roberts before, sometimes talent overcomes
absolutely
head coaching or
certainly
managerial
does.
Shortcomings, right?
Yep.
And boy, he's got all the talent. He's got all the experience. If one team's going to bounce back from 3-point range, Baylor 3 of 19. To me, that's not going to happen again.
That's shocking. That's shocking because I don't think they hit one in the second half. They must not have, because early in that game when they took that little 6 or 8 point lead, and then all of a sudden you turn around and they were behind, they'd hit a few 3-pointers. So it must have been pretty dry after that, and they still found, as you said, they still found a way to stymie. And let's call a spade a spade. This isn't 2019 Villanova. This was a Villanova team that was still good. It's Jay Wright coach team. They're going to play for 40 minutes. That they're still talented, but they weren't very deep. And without Gillespie, he was more than just the guy who brought the ball up the court. We all know that. That he's that leader. He's the one that was with that 2009. He's been involved with good teams, talented teams. He knows how to manage the game on the court. And without him, they just were never the same. And they got by their first 2 opponents fairly. They were fortuitous, let's say, on who they were facing.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And in Arkansas's case, this isn't Lee Mayberry, Todd Day, and
No,
Oliver Miller.
you're right.
No. This is a head coach who's getting the most out of a real young team, probably a year ahead of time. You don't want to face these guys next year with Coach Musselman.
I could not agree more. In fact, this is not. In fact, even Musselman, I like. I like him much better as an administrator and a recruiter, and putting good people around him to make his players better. But this is not. He doesn't have the Twin Towers he had at Reno. This is another guy. I can see recruiting in Reno, but he had a pretty darn good team up there. That for a mountain team, it's a mountain team. Since Tark was forced to disappear, him and his towel, there really hasn't been a mountain team like Musselman had last year. I don't think. Maybe a couple San Diego State teams. You might argue with me about that, but for the most part,
Right. No, he
This
has
is
the
what he's
margin
doing
of
here.
wins,
Listen,
and
he's going to be tough if he continues to do what he did at Reno and Nevada. Then the SEC has a bright future because there's some good coaches and some pretty good players have stopped going to the ACC, and now are some of those recruits are staying home and going to SEC schools and a football conference. So it's kind of if you're an SEC fan and you live down there, it's kind of exciting.
And real quick, guys, to the exterior angle of recency bias and how people bet on what they saw last, which is always the case. In this tournament, it's almost been like signing a death warrant. If you bet against what you saw last, you lose.
Yep.
So remember, it's an overall picture here. Now, all that being said, even though the recency bias would be Arkansas should have lost or could have lost to Oral Roberts, and boy, Baylor looked tremendous. Davion Mitchell in the second half stealing every single ball that came his way. I'm going to bet Baylor. I still think you bet Baylor. I just think for other reasons, you still bet Baylor. Tone, you said it's the Gonzaga Baylor. And again, I'll go back to this because we said it on Friday's show. 6 weeks ago, your number one seeds would have been Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, Alabama. And it looks like your four best teams are Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, Alabama. Hopefully it ends up that way, but maybe we didn't need to go through all this hectic last 6 weeks of the season to come up with the same four teams we knew in mid-February. But certainly right now, that's the way they're lining up.
It's been, I don't know this either, but it's been quite a while since we've had, first off, I don't know how long it's been. How long has it been since an overall number one seeds won this tournament? I don't recall. It hasn't been an overabundance of those. And how many number one seeds? When was the last time 3 number one seeds made the tournament? I think we've had
John,
a couple.
What was the Chris Jenkins Villanova team? Were they the one? They were a one, were they?
I think they were a 1 seed. I thought I was just going to look up.
Overall number one. How about, were they the overall number one? They may have been.
I don't think they were overall number one.
Okay.
In fact, they might have been the 4th number one.
That night?
What's that?
I don't even remember the championship game was. It wasn't Michigan, was it?
That's what I'm thinking it was. But yeah,
I mean,
think
I can-
and Villanova
In 2019?
Yeah.
Michigan lost Villanova. That was the only time that they. That was the Michigan loss to Villanova, right? I believe so. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm gonna pull this up here and see if I can figure this out real quick.
That was kind of a surprise Michigan team. I thought, but they got a lot farther than I thought they would get. But
yeah, this is. I may have to do this on the show tomorrow. I'll send it to you guys. And you can use it on the Wager Talk shows that everybody should be watching all day long tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to take up everybody's time here trying to go by seed here.
So John wants me to talk him out of Oregon State. Not very hard, John. I'll work on that for you.
Yeah, John Connolly in the chat room said you were talking him into taking Oregon State.
Yeah, he wants to be talked out of it.
It looked like he wants to go with your direction, but
listen.
I kind of thought you were on the other side.
Yeah, I am on the other side. Well, yeah. I if I'm not on the other side, then I'm out of that room. It would be I'd almost be changing my stripes if I was all of a sudden jump to that side. It would be what have you been saying, Tony? I firmly believe that. So I won't do that. I still believe that it's the end of the road. I've said that now for 3 games. It's the end of the road. It's the end of the road for Oregon State. It's the end of the road for Pac-12. Oh my goodness! Guess what? Not yet.
But for the viewer there, John Conley, it could be the end of the road for Oregon State, and it could be the end of the road by 5 points.
That's absolutely true, without question.
I play Houston money line if that's the
case. I will say this, John. This is a game that I'll be playing. I may even wait for in-game live on, even though I like Houston, because if I see that Sampson is going to attack this point guard for Oregon State and at least attempt to make me look good, and what I think will win this game for them and cover, that's when I may get it. That's when I may jump it. I may be too late. Maybe I might have to. If I'm right and I'm really right, hell, I may have to lay 10 if I wait too long. So I got to be careful of that as well. Yeah.
The Villanova year was against Michigan. They were a number one. I can't tell whether they were the overall number one. Kansas was in the Final Four. They were number one.
Yeah.
Michigan was
Virginia,
a 3.
The very last one, Virginia, I feel, was the overall number one when they beat
Texas
Tech.
I'll let you guys. That's way too much work
in overtime. But again,
it's fun though.
I think the general point was how tough it is to push 3 number ones all the way to the Final Four.
It's tough.
Happen.
Yeah.
You know. And this year we may get that. Well, who knows? There's 3
left.
We
couldn't we? We could get 3 1s and a 2, couldn't we?
3 1s and a 2 we could get.
And all the upsets that took place before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
cream rises to the top.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And you are right. Virginia was a number one that year that Villanova won. And they we all know who they lost to. 2018 tournament.
Yeah, and then they came back as the overall number one and won the whole thing. Overtime with
Texas
Tech that night.
So, in 19. Was it 19?
That's the most recent one, I think, yeah.
So, yeah.
But it's hard. I remember when the Big East got 3 in the Final Four. But that's a long time.
That was a long time ago, I think.
It's been a few times that the conference mates have met in the finals. Hasn't there been? 1988. We talked about that. Billy Tubbs and Larry Brown, Kansas, Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
I don't know. There's been a few times, but that's a rare situation as well.
Let me pull that up real quick. 88. Just for fun.
Sure.
We have
Kansas was a 6 seed. Oklahoma was a 1 seed, I think.
I'm going to guess that 88 was Indiana Syracuse, or was that 86? What's the Keith Smart jump shot against Bobby Knight?
I don't have undefeated team, right?
I'm definitely not that old. But the East region was number 1 seed Temple. Lost to number 2 Duke in the East region.
Well, that's Marc Macon's team.
Yep. And Kansas State was number 4 seed. Lost to Kansas, number 6 seed. And then
Kansas
in the
4th seed,
yeah,
was
Southeast
was that Huggins when he
I don't
at Kansas State? I think so. That's when Bobby Huggins was coaching Kansas State.
Yeah, it's got to be Mitch Richmond.
Yeah. Richmond and boy, that was a good team. My goodness gracious. Richmond when he was at Golden State, the Run DMC, that was a very fun team to watch too. Wow. Bringing back memories now.
And then Oklahoma was a 1 seed. They destroyed Villanova to advance to the Final Four. And then in that last West region, it was number 1 Arizona defeated number 2 UNC.
Yep.
So the Final Four was 2 number 1s, a number 2, and Kansas being a number 6, and Kansas won it.
Right.
What wasn't that? I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't have good memories with coaches and players, but that was the Danny Manning year, wasn't it?
It was Danny and the Miracles, and that was Larry Brown's last year. It was his 5th year at Kansas that time, and his championship year. He had chosen to stay, and then all of a sudden the probation information, some of the violations that Larry had committed, and so that's when he decided to leave, and that's when Kansas was stuck. And that's when Dean Smith said, listen, I recommend this guy, and you all know him and love him. You don't know him, but you'll love him. And that was Roy Williams. That's when Roy Williams hit the scene. And, Roy has what's he got? 4 championships now? 3 championships now? He got stuck at the 0 at Kansas, had some really good teams, but he inherited that mess that who was the center? Who was the big played for North Carolina that was a coach before Roy came over? It was a mess.
Oh, the kid they threw out of there, Matt Doherty.
Exactly.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
Wow.
It was a mess, and Roy came and saved that. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great trivia question.
Yeah.
No, because I got it in 2 seconds, so it's not that great.
No, it was 4 seconds.
That's a nothing question. It's a nothing burger, Dan.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, before we
Yeah.
sign off here, I want you guys to be able to tell everybody where they can get your subscriptions and any specials you're running. Anything else you want to say? So we'll start with Tony, and then we'll pass the baton to Rob, and we'll call it a night.
The number one handicapping site on, not just on the planet, I think in the Milky Way. Let's just go that far. WagerTalk.com. You can find me, and only at WagerTalk.com. If you have any interest in doing such, call Rob, and he will give you a deal on me. I'm sure he will. I'm positive. Call him, text him, write him, whatever.
I would say call Tony. He's got higher connections.
They don't like me.
Although
I've pissed
Johnny
them all
does
off.
love me.
Yeah.
Yeah, wagertalk.com. For everybody watching this, in all seriousness, you go to wagertalk.com, you become a subscriber for free. And with that free subscription, you have access to every single media show we do all week long, Monday through Friday. And they start, I believe they start 11 a.m. Eastern time with the hockey.
Yep.
And run all the way through the day till 5 at night. So you're getting 6 hours of games on the board that day, covered by a host of analysts. Doesn't matter what sport's being played. I know college basketball is going to go away in a couple of weeks, but you'll get a Major League Baseball crew in there. Now we'll have shows each and every week. And, of course, the Wager Talk Today's show, which is a daily at noon and covers everything. Tony and myself were part of that NBA tip-off show, which is great information. But you can get it all, guys. If you're just looking for maybe something that you didn't know going into the day's card, you're going to pick it up on one of those shows. A ton of great analysts and great hosts as well. Drew and on the Sports Memo side, and Joe on the Wager Talk side, Joe Ranieri.
Yeah, I don't know what it's worth to you guys or to anyone listening, but even a guy like me I live like you, Rob. We breathe, and John, we live, breathe, and digest sports. And I do these shows not because they pay us to these shows. I mean, we get some FaceTime, and we can mention here or there. You may even bring in a dollar or two into our coffer on the side. But I do this because no matter how much you think you know, you don't know enough. And I learn something every time. When we did that NBA show every day, when we first brought that show on the air, Rob and we were on it every day. I only do it once a week now. I don't know how many times you do it, but I do it once a week. And because they think I start talking about Alice in Wonderland too much, stuff like that, but I don't understand. But I learned something every day. Every day I would learn something, that I missed, that I just missed. And a lot of times it shifted my decisions. And for the most part, I will say it shifted my decisions in the right direction, in a good way. So stop by.
That's well said. Yeah, I can state very clearly it is the best site on the internet, and if not in the Milky Way. I agree 100%. And you could, not that I encourage you to do this, you could blindly pick any of the guys at Wager Talk, and you're going to be satisfied. You're going to get your money's worth and then some. And if you pick these two guys, it's, this is the top. They've done it a long, long time. They know what they're doing. They're going to lose some. They're going to win some. But over time, over the course of a season, this site has the best guys on the planet to invest your money in. So trust me on that. And I guess I'll let you guys go tonight. I appreciate your time.
One bonus is I try as hard as I can to put some good story in all my analysis that has absolutely nothing to do with the game. I do the best I can.
Yeah, I can't debate that. I have nothing to say on that.
Huh?
My friends would be amazed that I'm actually speechless after that remark, that I don't have
that's true.
I'll come back.
I got lots of stories. We got lots of stories.
Yep.
Some of them I just know better than to say anything about. John and this guy over here to the right of me, well, I'll be left, right or left, wherever your perspective may be, whoever taught you what right and left is. I don't want to tell some of these stories. The Quinn Snyder story. I know I'm going to get myself in a S-load of trouble if I even mention the stuff I know about that. And I've already gotten a few pellets in my ass from Twitter drive-bys on the Scott Drew stuff. One guy said, "You don't even know Scott Drew." How can I said, "I know Scott Drew. I've asked him 20 questions. I know him. I know him. I know his. I know him."
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Thanks for
I
having
know
me.
one thing. I can honestly say I've had both of you guys on the same show twice in the same day.
Wow.
And that means a lot. Really does. So thanks for
Very good.
being on the show.
Yeah,
I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow.
I'll send the invoice.
Well, here in Pennsylvania, the mail is really slow, Tony. It's really bad. But anyway,
our coronavirus shots.
Well, that's true. That's another topic.
Has anybody got their vaccine?
No,
I haven't either. I'm in the back.
So
my wife got hers. My wife, who's 10 years younger than me, got hers, and she's considered a frontline worker. In Vegas, they're more important. The people that run the hotels, the casinos, the restaurants, they are the important people, not me. Not me. It's okay. Drug overdoses, heart attacks, all the things that have happened. 61. 2 steps away from drowning in my pool someday. Possible. I need a shot. Governor Sisolak, I need my shot. See you guys. It's good to talk to you.
All right, you too, man. Have a good night.
All right. Good luck the rest of the night, guys.
You bet. We'll see everybody later. And I got to end it always the same way. May all the wins be yours. Thanks a lot.